This is Portal by J. Robert Lennon. It's been a few years since we last used the magic portal in our back garden, and it's fallen into disrepair. To be perfectly honest, when we bought this place, we had no idea what kind of work would be involved. The tasks like keeping the garden weeded, repairing the fence, maintaining the portal, etc., quickly fell to the bottom of the priority list, where we got busy dealing with the roof and floor joists. I guess there are probably people with full-time jobs out there who can keep an old house in great shape without breaking their backs. But if there are, I've never met them. My point is, we've developed a kind of blind spot about that whole back acre. The kids are older now and don't spend so much time wandering around in the woods and clearing the way they used to. Luann is all about the boys these days. You can't get Chester's mind away from the Xbox for more than 5 minutes. And Gretchen and I hardly ever even look in that direction. I think one time last summer we got a little drunk and sneaked out there to have sex under the crabapple tree. Weeds and stones kept poking up through the blanket and the bugs were eating us alive. So we gave up, came back inside, and did it in the bed like normal people. I know, too much information, right? Anyway, it was the kids who discovered the portal back when we first moved in. They were into all the magic stuff at the time. Henry Potter, Lord of the Rings, that kind of thing. While Gretchen and I steamed off old wallpaper and sanded the floorboards inside the house, they had this whole crazy fantasy world invented back there, complete with various kingdoms, wizards, evil forces, orcs, trolls, and what have you. They made paths, buried treasures, drew maps, basically had a grand old time. We didn't even have to send them to summer camp. They were so tolerable. They didn't fight, didn't complain. I hope someday, when the teen years are over with, they'll remember all that and have some kind of relationship again. Maybe when they're in college. Fingers crossed. One afternoon, I guess it was in July, they came running into the house, tracking mud everywhere, breathlessly shouting about something they'd found. "It's a portal! It's a portal to another world!" I got pretty bent out of shape about the mud. The kids were seriously over the moon about this thing, and their enthusiasm was infectious. So Gretchen and I followed them out across the yard and into the woods, then down the little footpath that led to the clearing. It's unclear what it used to be there, back in the day. Land behind our house was once farmland. The remains of old dirt roads run everywhere. But at this time, a few years ago, the clearing was pretty overgrown, thick with shrubs and brambles and the like. We figured there'd just been a grain silo or something big that would have resulted in this perfectly circular area. The kids had uncovered a couple of stone benches and a little fire pit, so clearly somebody used to hang around here in the past, lighting a fire and sitting on the benches to look at it. When we reached the clearing, we were quite impressed with the progress the kids had made. They'd managed to clear a lot of brush, and the place had the feel of some kind of private room. The sun coming down through the clouds, the wall of trees surrounding the space and all that. It was really nice. The kids had stopped at the edge, and we came up behind them. They were like, "Do you see it?" And we were like, "See what?" They said, "Look." And we said, "Where?" They said, "Mom, Dad, just look." And sure enough, off to the left, kind of hovering above what looked like another bench, but now appeared more like a short, curved little staircase, was this oval, sort of man-sized, shimmering thing that honestly just screamed magic portal. It was totally obvious what it was. Nothing else gives the air that quality, a kind of electrical distortion, like heat or whatever is bending space itself. This was a real surprise to us, because there'd been nothing about it in the real estate ad. You'd think the former owners would have mentioned it. I mean, the dry rot, I understand why they left that out, but even if the portal was busted, it's still a neat thing to have, or so I thought at the time. Could have added a few thou to the asking price, easy. But this was during the economic slump, so maybe not. Maybe the previous owners never bothered to come back here and didn't know what they had. They looked like indoor types, frankly. Not that Gretchen and I looked like backcountry survivalists or anything. But I digress. The fact is, this portal was definitely not busted. It was working. Kids had taken special care uncovering the steps that led to it, tugging out all the weeds from between the stones, and unearthing the little flagstone patio that surrounded the whole thing. In retrospect, if I'd been an expert or even a well-informed amateur, We'd probably been able to tell the portal was really just puttering along on its last legs and would soon go on the fritz. But of course I was, and I guess still am, an idiot. We all went over there and walked around it and looked through it. Had a laugh, making faces at one another through the space and watching each other go all funhouse mirror. But obviously the unspoken question was, do we go through? I was actually really proud of the kids right then because they'd come and gotten us instead of just diving headfirst through the thing like a lot of kids would have done. Who knows? Maybe this stellar judgment will return to them someday. A guy can dream. But at this moment, we all were just kind of looking at each other, wondering who was going to test it out. Since I'm the father, this task fell to me. I bent over and pried a stone up out of the dirt and stood in front of the portal, with the kids looking on from behind. Gretchen stood off to the side with her arms folded over her chest, doing that slightly disapproving stance she does pretty much all the time now. And after a dramatic pause, I raised my arm and tossed the stone at the portal. Nothing dramatic. The stone just disappeared. "It works!" Chester cried. Luann hopped up and down, trying to suppress her excitement. "Now, hold on," I said, and picked up a twig. I braced my foot on the bottom step and poked the twig through the portal. This close you could hear a low hum from the power the thing was giving off. In retrospect, this is probably an indication that the portal was out of whack. I mean, if my TV did that, I'd call a guy. And I figure, what did I know? Besides, when I pulled the twig out, it looked okay. Not burned or frozen or turned into a snake or anything. It was just itself. I handed it to Gretchen and gave it a cursory examination. "Jerry," she said, "I'm not sure." Don't worry. I knew the drill. She's the mom. She has to be skeptical. It's my job to tell her not to worry. It was harder to do nowadays, let me tell you. I got up nice and close to the portal. The little hairs on my arms were standing up. I stuck out my index finger and moved it slowly toward the shimmering air. Chester's eyes were wide. Luann covered her mouth with her fists. Gretchen sighed. Well, what can I say? It went in and I barely felt a thing. It was weird seeing my pointer finger chopped off the knuckle like that. When I pulled it out again, voila, there it was, unharmed. My family, still silent, took the bull by the horns and just shoved my whole arm in. The kids screamed. I pulled it out. "What?" I said. "What?" "We could see your blood and stuff." This was Chester. Luann said, "Daddy, that was so gross." "Like an x-ray?" I said. Chester was laughing hysterically now. "Like it got chopped off." "Oh, my God, Jerry," Gretchen said, her hands on her heart. My arm was fine, though. In fact, it felt kind of good. Wherever the arm had just been, it was about 5 degrees warmer in this breezy little glade. "Kids," I said, "stand behind me," because I didn't want them to see what I was about to do. Eventually, we'd get over this little taboo and enjoy watching each other walk super slowly through the portal, revealing our pulsing innards. But for now, I didn't want to freak anyone out, myself least of all. When the kids were safely behind me, Gretchen holding them close, I stuck my head through. I don't know what I was expecting, Middle-earth or Jupiter or Tuscany or what, but I could never in a million years have guessed the truth. I pulled my head out. "It's the vacant lot behind the public library," I said. I think that even then, that very day, we knew the portal was screwed up. It was only later, after it was obvious, Gretchen and I started saying out loud strange things we noticed on the family trip downtown. For one thing, the book we got at the library. Obviously, that's the first place we weren't quite right. The plots were all convoluted. The paper felt funny. The bus lines were not the way we remembered, with our usual bus, the 54, called the 24. And the local transit authority color scheme had been changed to crimson and ochre. Several restaurants had different names. The one guy we bumped into, whom we knew, my old college pal Andy, recoiled in apparent horror when he saw us. It was just, off. But the really creepy thing was what Chester said that night as we were tucking him into bed. How I miss those days now. Chester was still practically a baby. He needed us to hug and kiss him goodnight. He just started laughing there in the dark. Gretchen said, "What is it, honey?" And he said, "That guy with the dog head." "Dog head?" we asked him. "Yeah, that guy, remember him? He walked past us on the sidewalk. He didn't have a regular head. He had a dog head." Well, Chester was always saying crazy nonsense back then. He still does, of course, but that's different. used to be cute and funny. So we convinced ourselves he was kidding. Later, when we remembered that, hell, we got chills. Everything from there on in would only get weirder. It's that dog head, Chester remembering the dog head, that freaks me out. I guess the things that scare you are the things that are almost normal. Anyway, that first time, everything seemed to go off more or less without a hitch. After the library, we walked in the park, went out for dinner, enjoyed the summer weather. Then we went back to the vacant lot, found the portal, and went home. It's tricky to make out the return portal when you're not looking for it. The shimmering is fainter. Of course, there's no set of stone steps leading up to it or anything. Anybody watching would just have seen us disappearing one by one. In the old Disney live-action movie, like Flubber or Witch Mountain, there would be a hobo peering at us from the gutter, and then, when we vanished, looking askance at his bottle of moonshine, resolvedly tossing it over his shoulder. So that night, we felt fine. We all felt fine. We felt pretty great, in fact. It'd been an exciting day. Gretchen and I didn't get it on. Gretchen and I didn't get it on. It was that time of the month. We snuggled a lot. We decided to make it a weekend tradition, at least on nice days. Get up, read the paper, get dressed, and out to the portal for a little adventure. Because by the third time it was obvious it would be an adventure. It turns out the portal wasn't permanently tied to the vacant lot downtown. I don't know if this was usual or what, but I pictured it flapping in the curtains of space and time, sort of like a windsock, stuck fast at one end and whipping randomly around at the other. I still have no idea why it dropped us off so close to home, or so apparently close to home, that first time. I suppose it was still trying to be normal, like an old guy in denial about the onset of dementia. The second time we went through, we thought we were in old-time England, on some heath or something. In fact, after I put my head in to check, I sent Gretchen back to the house to fill a basket with bread and fruit and the like for a picnic. I told Luann to go to the garage to get the flag off her bike to mark the side of the return portal. Clever, right? The weather was fine. We were standing in a landscape of rolling grassy hills, little blue meandering creeks, and drifting white puffy clouds. You'd see farms and villages in every direction, but no cities, no cars or planes or smog. We hiked down into the nearest village and got a bit of a shock. Nobody was around. No people or animals, for that matter. The place was abandoned. We all got the strong feeling that the whole world was abandoned, too. That we were the only living creatures in it. There weren't even any bugs. It was lonesome as hell. We went home after an hour and ate our picnic back in the clearing. The third time we went through, we ended up in this crazy city. Honestly, it was too much. Guys selling stuff, people zipping around in hover cars, drunks staggering in the streets, cats and dogs, and these weirdly intelligent-looking animals that were sort of like deer, but striped and half as large. Everybody wore hats. The men seemed to favor these rakish, modified witch hat things with a floppy brim, and women wore a kind of collapsed cylinder, like a souffle. Nobody seemed to notice us. They were busy, busy, busy. And the streets, none of them was straight. Like a loud, crowded spaghetti maze. For about half an hour, we were terrified that we'd get lost and would never find the portal again, which miraculously had opened into the only uninhabited dark alley in the whole town. We planted our bicycle flag between two paving stones, almost lost it to a thing that was definitely not a rat. Chester demanded a witch hat. The only place we found that sold them wouldn't take our money. We didn't speak the language anyway, which was this whacked-out squirrel chatter. Oh yeah, and everybody had a big jutting chin. Everybody. When we finally got home that night, the four of us got into a laughing fit about the chins. I don't know what it was. They just struck us as wildly hilarious. Annoying as that trip was, I have to admit now that it was the best time we ever had together, as a family, Even when we were freaked out, we were all on the same page. We were a team. I suppose it's perfectly normal for this to change. Kids have to strike out on their own someday, right? They have to develop their own interests and their own way of doing things, or else they'd never leave, God forbid. But I miss that time. Just like every other asshole who fails to appreciate what he's got while he still has it, all I ever did was complain. I'm thinking here of the fourth trip to the portal.
Unknown caller.
When I stuck my head through for a peek, all I saw was fog, All I heard was clanking. I pictured some kind of waterfront, with the moored boats bumping up against each other, and maybe a nice seafood place tucked in among the warehouses and such. I guess I'd gotten kind of reckless. I led the family through, and after about 15 seconds, I realized that the fog was a hell of a lot thicker than I thought it was. Kind of stung the eyes and nose, and that the clanking was far too regular and far too deep and loud to be the result of some gentle ocean swell. In fact, we'd ended up in hell. A world of giant robots, acrid smoke, windowless buildings, and glowing toxic waste piles. We should have turned right around and gone back through the portal, but Chester ran ahead, talking to himself about superheroes or something. Gretchen went after him. Luann reached for my hand. Maybe for the last time ever. Please, I don't want to go there. Before you knew it, we had no idea where we were. The fog thickened, if anything. Nobody knew who had the flag, if we'd even remembered to bring the thing. It took Luann and me half an hour just to find Gretchen and Chester, 2 hours more to find the portal. It was only by random groping. It would have been easy to miss it entirely. But this time we were all trembling and crying. Well, I wasn't crying, but I was sure close, and nearly paralyzed with fear from a series of close calls with these enormous, filthy, fast-moving machines which looked like elongated forklifts, in one instance, kind of chirping metal tree on wheels. When I felt my arm tingle, I nearly crapped myself with relief. We piled through the portal and back into a summer evening in the yard, and were disturbed to discover a small robot that had inadvertently passed through along with us. Kind of four-slice toaster-type thing on spindly, anodized bird legs. In the coming weeks, it would rust with unnatural speed, twitching all the while. There was nothing but a gritty orange stain on the ground. Maybe I'm remembering this wrong, piling all our misfortunes together in one place in my mind. I believe it was in the coming days that the kids began to change, or rather to settle into what we thought, hoped, were temporary patterns of unsavory behavior. Chester's muttered monologuing, which for a long time we thought was singing, or an effort to memorize something, took on a new intensity. His face would turn red. Spittle would gather at the corners of his mouth. When we interrupted him, he would gaze at us with hatred, some residual emotion from his violent fantasy world. As for Luann, the phone began ringing a lot more often. She would disappear with the receiver into private corners of the house to whisper secrets to her friends. Eventually, of course, the friends turned into boys. Gretchen bought her some makeup, and the tight jeans and t-shirts she craved, because what are you going to do? Make the kid wear hoop dresses and bonnets? As for Gretchen, well, I don't know. She started giving me these looks, not exactly pitying, but regretful, maybe. Disappointed. Not even in me particularly. More like she had disappointed herself for setting her sights so low. I'm tempted to blame the portal for all this, but it showed us how pathetic, how circumscribed our lives really were. But I didn't need a magic portal to tell me I was no Mr. Excitement. I liked my creature comforts. And I liked it when my wife and kids don't demand too much from me. And when you get down to it, maybe all that, not the portal, is the reason everything started going south. Not that Gretchen's parents helped matters when they brought Chester the video game for his birthday. An hour in front of that thing and adios, amigo. Whatever demons were battling in his mind all day long found expression through his thumbs. It became the only thing that gave the poor kid any comfort. Eventually, we would come to realize that Luann was turning into, forgive me, something of a slut. That Chester had lost what few social graces we'd managed to teach him. Today, his face is riddled with zits. He wanders off from the school grounds 2 or 3 times a week. He still gets skid marks in his tighty-whities. And Luann, we bought her a used car in exchange for a promise to drive Chester where he wanted to go. But she gave him a ride maybe once. Was to, God knows why, a sheet metal fabricating place down behind the supermarket. Then forgot him there for 4 hours while she did God knows what with God knows who. It doesn't matter what I was doing. Stuff. I'm getting ahead of myself. You think we would have quit the portal entirely after the robot fog incident, and you're probably mistaking us for intelligent people. Instead, we went back now and again. It was the only thing we would all agree to do together. Sometimes I went by myself, too. I suspect Gretchen was doing the same. She'd be missing for a couple hours, and would come back flushed and covered with burrs, claiming to have been down on the recreation path jogging. I don't think the kids went alone. Then, Where did Chester get that weird knife? In any event, what we saw in there became increasingly disturbing. Crowds of people with no faces. A world where the ground itself seemed to be alive, heaving and sweating. We generally wouldn't spend more than a few minutes wherever we ended up. The portal, in its decline into senility, seemed to have developed an independent streak, a mind of its own. It was giving us things it thought we wanted. It showed us a world that was almost all noise and confusion and flashing red light, the soundtrack of something you could hardly call music, made by something you maybe could mistake for guitars. Only Luann had a good time in that one. There was Chester's world, the one that wheeled around us in pixelated rainbow 3D, where every big-eyed armored creature exploded into fountains of glittering blood and coins, and the one that looked like ours, except thinner, everything thinner, the buildings and people, the trucks and cars, and from the expression of horror on Gretchen's face, I could tell where that one was coming from. And there was the one place where all the creatures, great and small, appeared to have the red hair, thick ankles, and perky little boobs of the new administrative assistant at my office. Gretchen didn't talk to me for days after that. It certainly did put me off the new assistant. And so before the summer was over, we gave up. The kids were too busy indulging their new selves and quit playing make-believe out in the woods. And Gretchen and I were lost in our private worlds of self-disgust and conjugal disharmony. By Christmas, we'd forgotten about the portal, and the clearing began to fill in. We did what people do. We lived our grim, corporeal selves through life. I checked back there a couple times over the next few years, to see if everything looked all right. Needless to say, last time I checked, it didn't. The humming was getting pretty loud. The shimmering oval was all lopsided, with sort of hernia in the lower left corner. It was actually drooping far enough to touch the ground. When I poked a stick through the opening, there was a pop and a spark and a cloud of smoke. The portal seemed to emit a kind of hacking cough, followed by the scent of ozone and rot. When I returned to the house and told Gretchen what I'd seen, she didn't seem to care. So I decided not to care either. Like I said before, there were more important things to worry about. Just a few weeks ago, though, I started hearing strange noises at night. "Did you hear that?" I'd say out loud, if I was in bed with Gretchen, as opposed to on the sofa alone. She would rise up out of half-sleep to tell me no, it was just a dream. But it wasn't. It was a little like a coyote's yip, but deeper, more elongated. Sometimes there would be a screech of metal on metal, kind of random ticking. If I got up and looked out the window, sometimes I thought I could see a strange glow coming from the woods. And now, even in the daytime, there's a funny odor hanging around the yard. It's springtime, Gretchen says, just the smell of nature waking up. But I don't think so. Is springtime supposed to smell like motor oil and dog piss in the morning? To be perfectly honest, I'm beginning to be afraid of what our irresponsibility, our helplessness, has wrought. I mean, we bought this place. We own it. It's like we own all our other problems. I try to talk to Gretchen about it, but she doesn't want to hear it. I'm on a different track right now, she says. I can't be distracted from my healing. Healing from what, I want to know. My psychic disharmony. I mean, what can you say to that? Meanwhile, I have no idea where our daughter is half the time. I haven't got up to Chester's room in 3 weeks. I can hear him up there muttering. I hear the bed squeak as he acts out his violent fantasies. I hear the menacing orchestral strings and explosions and tortured screams that emanate from his favorite games. Problems don't just go away, Problems get bigger and bigger. Before you know it, they're bigger than you are, and it's too late to fix them. Some days when I've gotten a decent night's sleep and have had a few cups of coffee, I think, sure, I'll just get on the phone, start calling people up and asking for help. A school guidance counselor, a marriage therapist, a pediatrician, a witch or shaman or wizard or physicist or whoever in the hell might know what to do about the portal, or even have the balls to walk down that path and see what's become of the clearing. But on other days like today, when I'm too damn tired even to reach for the phone, the only emotion I can summon up is longing for a time when the world was miraculous. I couldn't wait to get up in the morning and start living. I mean, the magic has to come from someplace, right? It's out there, bestowing itself on somebody else's wife, somebody else's kids, somebody else's life. All I want is to get back just a little of it. Is that so much to ask?